Everybody, it's me, your buddy Dave, the host of the Dark Stuff channel here on YouTube. Thank you so much for checking out my latest video. As always, it is much appreciated. Folks, you've tuned into an episode of this year's week where I offer up a kind of a general wrap-up of everything going on in the world of the dark stuff. So in this video, we're probably going to be talking about stuff like the upcoming Joey Song Freezing Man Festival in Madison. I went to it earlier this year. I just bought tickets for it in 2026. We're going to talk about that. I'm also going to talk about a new Bangles box set that I just picked up. The end of my other channel, Rock and Roll Book Club, I'm going to address that briefly. Also, we're going to talk about the announcement of a Replacements movie that has just come out, and it is supposedly based on the book Trouble Boys. You know I have thoughts. And then just some general kind of music news. I mean, there's news about Rush, there's news about Kiss, there's news about Journey, there's news about MTV. I'm going to address all of it on this video. Okay, so let's talk about the Freezing Man Festival, or the Joey Song Benefit. It's basically, it is a rock festival. It takes place in Madison, Wisconsin in the middle of winter, and this year it's going to be January 9th and 10th of 2026. And the money is raised to help fight juvenile epilepsy. So I went to this festival last year, but I didn't even realize what it was about. I got an announcement, or I saw an announcement on Vicky and Debbie Peterson's social media. They were doing a concert in Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm like, wow, that sounds cool. The Bangles are done, and I'll probably never see them. So I wanted to go to this because I thought it was a Bangles concert. But slowly I started finding out it was a multi-day music festival, and the Bangles were only one of the groups, or Vicky and Debbie as Bangles and Friends were only one of the groups. So I went to the thing, but I only really stayed one night, and I didn't know about the multiple nights and all that stuff. So now that I'm much more aware of it, they made the announcement that the next year's festival is going to be January 9th and 10th, 2026 at the Sylvie in Madison, Wisconsin. They're saying featuring members of Garbage, the Bangles, Go-Go's, Cheap Trick, Belly, Letters to Cleo, Silver Sun Pickups, Big Star, Portugal the Man, Fountains of Wayne, Eve 6, Gang of Four, and more. And they've had a couple of announcements. I think they just announced Tracy Bonham is going to be there. And apparently one night is acoustic, one night is electric. I'm only mentioning this because I did make a video about my experience last year. It was a fun event. I'm going again. I already got the tickets. I made plans with my friends, but I'm giving this kind of early announcement. If there's any viewers of mine that are in the Wisconsin area going to this show, love to meet up at the gig, or some other sort of thing, or in telling other people around the country, if you're interested in these bands. And you're not actually going to see probably the Go-Go's. You're not going to see the Bangles or Garbage. It's just going to be members of. But it was a really, really great event last year. And again, it is for a good cause to fund research into juvenile epilepsy. Anyways, that is my announcement. Maybe I'll see some of you out there, who knows. I will definitely be doing a video on it because I am going to make the drive from Omaha to Madison, and we'll see what shenanigans happen. So before I get into anything music news related, I just want to point out that my other channel, Rock and Roll Book Club, has ended. We just published our final episode number 22, on October 1st of 2025, and that will be the final one. And there's no plan to take the videos down. They're just going to stay there for posterity, and people can watch them. I think we made a lot of great content, 22 episodes over 2 years. But basically, we came to a head over kind of the future of the channel and what we wanted to do with it, and a little bit about division of labor, and also just kind of like we weren't on the same page. I'd been unhappy doing it for a while, but was kind of hanging on because I felt like my co-hosts were really, really into it, and I didn't want to be the cause of it ending. But ultimately, by putting off what I kind of thought and not being super candid about me being unhappy with things, I think it ultimately came to a head. And when I got a little upset about something, it seemed like a surprise to them. And that's on me. I mean, that's a behavior thing. I made a mistake. I should have been more straightforward all along. But I'm also not 100% at fault. And that's how I'm just going to leave it. But the channel is over, which brings me to something new. So I told Todd over at Lost Mixtapes about the situation, and he lamented about it. That's too bad because that was a good show, and he used to regularly watch the videos and make comments on it. And, I was like, yeah, it sucks, but it's for the best. I couldn't continue on the way that it was. I just didn't have the time or energy to be involved in a project that I wasn't completely sold on anymore. And he brought up the idea of maybe we do something similar to this, but we don't fall into the same trap that I did with doing it the way that I did. So in other words, he and I are going to plan a loose sort of, club or whatever, a group of people with YouTube channels, and we're going to do a book, who knows, once a month, once every couple of months, don't know. It's going to be a rotating cast of characters on different people's channels. First book is going to be Let the Stories Be Told, which is a new biography on the Cars written by Bill Janovitz, who is from the band Buffalo Tom. One of my favorite bands, by the way. So this is where we're going to start, and he and I have both reached out to people, and we're just kind of putting it out there right now about people who may potentially be interested in the future, or may, and also maybe if you just want to watch the video, we'll read the book. So when we eventually do get it ready, we'll have you'll know the book that we're discussing. I think the idea right now is to start on my channel and then maybe go to Todd and then maybe go to whoever. But that's all the details I've got for you. But we are doing it. Todd and I are doing it for sure. We've got a bunch of other people roped in. And the first book is going to be Let the Stories Be Told, the book about the Cars. Okay, well, just recently it was announced that Finn Wolfhard, who's the actor in the show Stranger Things, I don't know what his character's name is or whatever, but anyways, he and his dad are producing a movie about the Replacements. And it's going to be based on the Trouble Boys book by Bob Mayer. And Bob Mayer's involved in it in somehow or whatever, maybe working on the screenplay, I don't know, but he's definitely involved in it too. And it's Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things. Now, I don't know how to feel about this, okay, because I'm naturally conflicted. Biopics are generally not that good. I mean, there are some exceptions. I thought the Queen one was pretty good, and a couple others, but for the most part they're really bad, especially when it comes to the performing. So I just have a bit of a hesitation to just be like, whatever. But if this thing can get made and they get some good actors, and maybe this Finn wants to actually be in it, I don't know. But I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic. I want it to be cool. If it's based on the Bob Mayer book, then it's the right source material. It's just, listening to that book on audiobook is 20 hours. It's a very, very long book. So that's a lot of detail that's going to get shed to make it into like a 90-minute movie or something like that. So just kind of depends on what they focus on and who the actors are or whatever. I also find it curious that Finn on the show Stranger Things, and so is Winona Ryder. Okay? Now, Winona Ryder, known Replacements fan dating back to the 80s. I mean, she was a huge Replacements fan. And used to be very public about it and wear Replacements t-shirts in the 80s at the height of her, like Heather's, fame or whatever. And in the 90s, she briefly dated Dave Pirner. I know he's Soul Asylum, but you know what I mean. They're in that same Minneapolis kind of rock thing. So I find it interesting. I'm wondering if she might have turned Finn on to the Replacements, or maybe it was his dad, but it could have been. I'd like to think that it's more or less Winona Ryder passing that on to this younger generation, and this kid being like, man, the Replacements are fucking awesome. Like, I'm in the movie business. Like, let's make a movie. When people get to know me and they find out about my musical taste, they know it is pretty eclectic. I am kind of all over the place, but there are certain groups that really seem to surprise people when they find out that I'm that into these bands. Number one is Slayer. People find it hard to believe that I'm a massive Slayer fan. I am. People also find it hard to believe that I'm a big Journey fan, and I am. My Journey, though, era ends at about 1981 with the Captured Live album and the end of the Greg Raleigh era, and I didn't really care much for Journey beyond that. Now, let's flash forward to 2025. Just recently, it was announced that Journey keyboardist Jonathan Cain is supposedly leaving the band. So Neil Schon, the guitar player, the founding member, went on to his social media, I think he was on Twitter or whatever, and said, Jonathan Cain out of Journey, but we're continuing on. Well, obviously, there was some clarification on that, and Jonathan Cain's not immediately out of the band. He's talking about after the tour next year in 2026. I mean, when I saw the announcement, I was all smiles. I'm like, screw Jonathan Cain, because number one, I don't like the era of Journey that he brought in, starting with Escape and Frontiers and whatever. And I know that was some of their most popular stuff. The biggest hits they ever had were in the Jonathan Cain era. But I'm sorry, I like the 70s Journey. And it's not about when Steve Perry came in, because the first 3 or 4 records he was on when Greg Raleigh was still there also, those were great too. It's just like it signaled a change when Jonathan Cain came in, because he was much less a rock guy like Greg Raleigh and Neil Schon, and he seemed like he was much more of a pop guy like Steve Perry, and that's where they went into these ballads, Faithfully and all of that, Open Arms, and the edge in the sound just kind of went away. But, I think politics is starting to put a strain on the band. Jonathan Cain's wife is like the spiritual advisor for the Trump administration or something, and he's now Jonathan Cain set up a ministry, and he's making religious music and stuff, and it's just like, it's not compatible with Journey. He can do whatever he wants, I mean, if he wants to make a religious album and go on that journey, for lack of a better term, go ahead, okay? But I am fine with him leaving Journey, and I would love if they would bring Greg Raleigh back. I know he's older now, maybe he doesn't want to, but I would love to get that vibe of the old Journey back and play some of that stuff instead of Send Her My Love and Faithfully and all this. Let's play some of that like late 70s stuff. So who knows what's going to happen. That band has so much drama, but I see it as nothing but positive that Jonathan Cain would eventually be leaving Journey. So in the world of Kiss, a couple of health scares perhaps in the Kiss world. So first it was Ace Frehley, who started canceling single shows on his in his recent tour because of health reasons. Then it was canceling all of the remaining 2025 dates for, quote, ongoing medical issues. And they're not saying exactly what that is. There's rumors. Maybe he had a stroke, maybe he had a fall, and something like that. And I don't know. I have no inside information and don't want to speculate, but I do think it is pretty serious. I mean, these guys are in their mid to late 70s at this point. Ace is, I don't know exactly what his age is, but he's over 70. So this is starting to catch up to them. So I hope Ace is okay and he recovers from this. I don't know. Maybe he won't ever tour again. I mean, these guys are up there. That you do have to hit a point where retirement is an option. Gene Simmons was also had a health scare too, because he was recently involved in a car accident in California. Apparently he passed out or fainted while driving, veered across a couple of lanes and rammed into a parked car. And he was taken to the hospital. He was there for like a day or so and then was able to check out and recover at home. Hopefully that's not too serious, although, again, he's in his mid to late 70s, and knowing the situation that I've been dealing with my parents who are in their late 70s, early 80s, they've had to stop driving. And maybe this is a sign. Maybe Gene shouldn't be behind that wheel. I don't know. But again, I don't think it was too serious with Gene. I mean, maybe it is just you're getting to that point where you should be letting other people drive. Because he, just a few days later, officiated Charlie Benante's wedding. Charlie Benante from the band Anthrax, and his wife is Carla Harvey, who is used to be in the band Butcher Babies and now is in a new group called The Violent Hour. And she's hot stuff. Sorry, I know she's a married woman now, but whatever. So he officiated the wedding and he seemed fine. So it must not have been too serious. But again, Gene, you're getting up there, and just a word of advice. Maybe don't drive. Leave the driving to somebody else. You're rich enough. You can afford a chauffeur or something, I wanted to talk about the Rush situation with them getting back together and putting a couple of shows. And I'm not going to be addressing whether they should or they shouldn't. That's their business, okay? I just think it's interesting that the focus on social media and from some more snarky like blogs and websites is assuming that Rush fans are going to have a problem with them replacing Neil Peart with a woman. Her name is Annika Nils, and she's going to be the new drummer for Rush for these shows. And has a huge resume, played with Jeff Beck and whatever, and so she's obviously got the skills. But there were so many assumptions that Rush fans are going to be upset. Oh, a girl drummer, I'm not into it, whatever. Most people that I've read, almost everything, commentary from Rush fans all over social media saying they're excited. They're not mad there's a girl drummer. They don't care. This is the stereotype of what Rush fans are. And, of course, the jokes about, well, Annika will be, the one woman at the arena or whatever because she'll be on the stage and there's no women in the crowd. And, I mean, look, there's a little truth in that joke, but it is basically exaggerated. But I only wanted to come on to say, like, look, I don't care whether Rush gets back together. I'm a moderate Rush fan. The last time I saw Rush in concert was probably 1988. Okay, so it's been an entire 2 generations or whatever since I saw them live. And I think they have every right to do this. I think I would be upset as a longtime fan if they were to try to create new music. Going out and doing shows and celebrating the legacy, Neil is passed. So it's not like he's turning it down or they're skipping over him or whatever. They're still there. They're still healthy. They still want to do it. It's their legacy too. I'm okay with it. But I only think they could be, taking it too far if they decided to make new music. And that's because their creative process Neil is more than just a drummer. He was the lyricist also. So I think that would be kind of hard to replicate, and I don't think Rush has any real need to make new music. But as far as going out and playing the old songs with a new drummer, I'm fine with it. Tickets are extremely expensive, so probably not something I'm going to be partaking in. But if you do go, have a great time and enjoy the concert. The thing I want to talk about is a new Bangles box set that just came out called Watching the Sky. Now, I was made aware of this by a commenter on my Facebook page. I shared an article about the Bangles, and the guy made a comment that said, "Hey, did you see that this new? Did you see the new box set that just came out on Cherry Red?" And I'm like, "No, I had no idea." And then he said, "It's he told me what was on the collection, and I saw what it was, and it's basically their first 3 albums on Columbia from the 80s, their big records, and then a 4th CD of B-sides, outtakes, remixes, etc. Obviously, I have all the Bangles records, so that's not new stuff for me, and I also have all of the B-sides and outtakes and whatever because they're all on various 12 inches or 7 inches that I have. But getting it all in one place was pretty cool. So the box set itself comes in this little cardboard box, and it's got a great booklet, lots of pictures of the band, and supposedly the liner notes are new, written for 2025. So the inside of the packaging is each of the Bangles CDs in a slipcase, all over the place, and different light have bonus tracks on these little slipcase CDs. Then you have the Everything album, no bonus tracks on that, just the straight record. And so then you have the 4th CD, which is the various versions. It's just got a lot of different remixes, dance remixes, B-sides, whatever. And it's a cool collection. I like having that all in one place, so I do want to thank my Facebook buddy Doug there for turning me on to that. Okay, and then we're going to close out with a little bit of footage from the Farnam Fest 25 here in Omaha. So last weekend I went to an indie music festival on Farnam Street. That's why it's called Farnam Fest here. And a lot of really young indie bands were playing at this thing. I didn't catch the entire festival. I missed the first 2 bands. I missed the last 2 bands. But I thought I would share a little bit with you guys in terms of some of the groups that I saw. Okay, so this first group that I'm going to show you is a group called Pet Sit. I believe they were from Chicago. They had like the cool 90s slacker vibe. I dug them. I missed the first 2 bands, which were Heavy Clippings and a band called Talent Show. And Heavy Clippings I've actually covered on this show before. So after their set, I ended up seeing Sam Aaron and Glass Beagle. And it turns out that those were 2 bands that they're separate, but they're touring together. They're both from Chicago, and they played a set. And it also had a similarly sort of indie kind of slacker vibe. It was incredibly hot, even though it was October, and what started off as a cool morning became an incredibly hot day, and by like 5 o'clock, sitting just in this blaring sun, I decided that was enough for me, and I thought I was going to go out to another show later that night. I ended up taking a little disco nap that turned into not waking up until 1 a.m. So I missed that show that I was going to go to at night. But the festival was fun. Again, these bands were pretty cool. I wish I could report on some of the others, but I didn't get any footage of them, or I wasn't even around. Well, I think this will do it for my episode of this year's week. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Take care. Goodbye.